In this video, we will introduce RMI troubleshooting tips within the Java programming language. Any serializable class, including Java RMI stubs, can be downloaded if your Java RMI programs are configured properly. Here are the conditions under which dynamic stub downloading will work. The stub class and any of the classes that the stub relies on are served up from a URL reachable from the client. The java.rmiserver.codebase property has been set on the server program that makes the call to bind or rebind. The value of the codebase property is the URL in the first step, and if the URL specified as the value of the codebase property is a directory, it must end in a trailing /. The RMI registry cannot find the stub class or any of the classes that the stub relies on in its class path. This is so the codebase gets annotated to the stub when the registry does its class load of the stub. As a result of calls to bind or rebind in the server or setup code, you can use several plugins with Eclipse to work with the RMI registry. You can also access the RMI registry through the command line. Here we have the registry again. There's two common problems with running the server. If you run into a problem running your Java RMI server, it could be the following. The first problem you might encounter is a receipt of a class not found exception when attempting to bind or rebind a remote object to a name in the registry. This exception is usually due to a malformed codebase property, resulting in the registry not being able to locate the remote objects, stubs, or other classes needed by the stub. Here, if I go to the registry, I can look at the RMI tab, but I can also look at the run configurations. Right below the menu toolbar, I can select Run Configurations, and I can go down here to RMI Application Server. Here you see the RMI registry. Here we have the Clear Default Registry, Restart the Default Registry, and Launch a new registry starting at 1099. Most frequently, this exception is thrown as a result of omitting the trailing / from the URL value of the property. Other reasons would include the value of the property is not a URL, or you just haven't started up the server. The path to the classes specified in the URL is incorrect or misspelled. The stub class or any other necessary classes are all available from the specified URL. Another problem that you may encounter is that when you try to make any changes to the project that has your remote objects, make sure you start your registry service. For example, here I have the user object that's going over the wire. If I start up my registry first, and then I make a change to the server object, which in this case would be the user object that's serializable. If I run my client, right-click on the client, run as Java application, you're going to see an exception. Unmarshaled exception. Error unmarshalling return exception is the user local class incompatible stream class description serial version and then a bunch of numbers. Error unmarshalling return. And here we see that the types are incompatible. In order to solve this problem, make sure your RMI registry is up and running using an Eclipse plugin for RMI in Eclipse. When you make the change, make sure that you shut down your registry. And make sure that you recompile all your classes so that all of them have the same version of any objects going over the wire. The client can sometimes experience problems itself. The problem you could encounter is the receipt of a class not found exception when attempting to look up a remote object in the registry. The problem you could encounter is the receipt of a class not found exception when attempting to look up a remote object in the registry. If you receive this exception in a stack trace resulting from an attempt to run your Java RMI client code, then your problem is the class path with which your Java RMI registry was started. You can also reference the server project on Eclipse that holds your implementation of the remote objects to remedy this problem, and any user-created objects. In order to add our remote objects and any server-side objects coming over the wire that need to be serialized and deserialized, any common objects can be added to your project as such. So in this case, we're going to be adding all the objects that are coming over the wire to our client project. Right-click the project name and navigate to Build Path after we select Properties. Select the Projects tabs. And here I already have it selected. You select Add, and in here you will have your projects actually pop up. Locate and select the projects you want and click OK. So in this case, if I remove this and I say Add, it will appear here. I just select it and say OK. Click OK to close the Properties window. The projects will now be referenced libraries instead of live. This is a way to fix common pitfalls while developing your RMI applications. And this concludes our discussion of RMI troubleshooting tips in Java.